Hi, I'm Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. I'm your host, Haven, and today I'm curious about toxic femininity and is it a thing? Toxic femininity. Is it a thing? We hear all the time about toxic masculinity, and I recently watched a show, Adolescence, which is about kind of the undertones of how that can affect kids and them subscribing to like Andrew Tate kind of views of masculinity and how it can kind of just corrode their perception of women and even themselves to some degree. And I'm sure we all know someone who's probably toxically masculine. But I was thinking a lot about it where is there such a thing as toxic femininity? And I'm sure there is because I'm a woman and I'm not always healthy. And I guess they're laughing a little too much over there. And I'm wondering, like, why don't we talk about it as a culture? Like, does it feel like, well, you know, that's more victim blaming and we're with the patriarchy or just all these reasons of why maybe we don't talk about it. But I think it's worth exploring of what's maybe the undertone, and maybe it's less aggressive, maybe it's more passive aggressive, and maybe it's less like out there and big and bold and fighting. I read this article. I'm a sociology major, and I remember reading a sociological article that was referencing the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchises and how the one where it's the lead is a female and all of the contestants are male is less viewed, because they were saying it's because the men, when they have fights, they'll like puff up their chests. They may even just get in each other's faces and it's much more aggressive and their confessionals are kind of boring. But whenever it's a male lead and all these females, there's a lot more viewers also because like it's more undertones and it's more, you know, side talking, and it's more in private. They're sharing what they're really feeling and not really presenting it. And it's much better for TV and it's much more entertaining. And so I think maybe that's a shade of what toxic femininity can be. And I was like, I don't want to camp on what sucks about it and just the whole negativity of it. And so then my mind went to what would healthy femininity be? And what is the picture of what we would like to ascribe to? And what came to my mind was Proverbs 31. And when I was, do you guys remember AIM? The AIM like chat? And maybe you should talk about this one. My guests can talk back. But my screen name when I was 11, my very first screen name was Proverbs 4 Rocks with an X. No, wait, it's Proverbs 31. I got everyone. I had Proverbs 4 as my second choice. We can keep this in here. I meant to say Proverbs 31 Rocks, and it was literally ROX. It was because I loved it so much. But man, it's really hard to like aspire to because there's a lot going on there. But then I had a friend, and she recently spoke at her church and was literally talking about Proverbs 31. And I listened to it and it felt so holistic and it felt so cool of like, oh, this is like a picture of like a healthy human and especially a healthy woman. And so that is a very long-winded way to say, welcome my first of two guests, Abby.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Mariah's clapping over there.
Thanks. Thank you for the applause.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. When we first met, it was me fangirling over your podcast. So, and telling you how much I love it last year at conference. So
I remember you came up and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to meet you. And then you went and sat down and I was like, why does he look familiar? He's on the poster. I was like, you are married to one of our speakers.
I am, yes. No, but I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. And I also brought in my longtime friend, Mariah. What's up?
Heyo.
Because as you said, we met last year. And this is our second time seeing each other in person. And I was like, let's bring someone we both know, Mariah, to come in and also weigh in on the topic.
Here for the vibes.
Here for the vibes. Here for the commentary. Okay. Talk.
So back to Proverbs 31 Rocks.
The topic of toxic femininity. I know, right? Like we're filming this after like conference ended. We had like very fun 3 days. We're all pretty tired.
So
and then we're going into, I was like, you know, it's not a light topic.
Yes.
We're not talking about your awesome nails. Which are, how did you do those, by the way?
Great question. Okay, she paints something on, and I think it's called like a bleeding gel. Yes. And then you can like
Cool.
dab it and it like bleeds, expands.
Wow.
It's fun.
I love that.
It felt neutral, but like not.
No, it feels nice.
Thank you.
Feels like you could go with different outfits. I
Yeah.
feel like that. My TikTok algorithm is all nails, and I like it that way.
Let's keep it that way.
I don't want anything dark. I don't want anything deep.
Nope.
Just give me some nails.
I love it.
But okay, when you think, let's talk about the bad side of femininity before we go into the healthy, because I would like to end on the healthy. But I'm sure we've all kind of experienced some type of, the toxic side of what it is to be feminine. And what I was thinking of is like the passive aggressiveness, or maybe gossip and like spilling the tea, or over like extending yourself for the male gaze, or for that kind of like manipulation or whatever. Like when you think of toxic femininity, like what would come to mind?
I feel like even you were talking about like toxic masculinity, and I feel like on the opposite side, like making it seem like there has to be one way that there is to be a woman, or a Christian woman, like taking that a step further. It's like there's one way to be a Christian woman. Or I remember feeling whenever I met Charles, he was already a pastor, and I remember like the thoughts of like, do I really want to be like a pastor's wife? Like,
yeah.
I grew up in church, but not serving, not a part of it like in that way. And I remember all the pastors' wives that I knew, I just thought like, that's not me. So like, I don't know if I can live up to this standard, or if I can be what the world wants me to be, or what they would expect. But I think it's funny how there's like, even if you're like very if you're a feminist and you believe in there's two opposite sides that I'm thinking of. Like, there's someone who could be like, you, to be a good woman, stay home, work, take care of your kids. Then there's people that would say, to be a good woman, like, do your thing, be the CEO, work hard, grind, do all of that. But the thing that makes me sad is that on both sides, you could condemn each other for doing that thing, where it's like, let's just be who we feel like we're supposed to be and cheer each other on. I love to cook. And for the first few years of our marriage, I was the one with a job, and I was supporting our family while we were starting a church. And I was a photographer, and that's how we built the church, and that's how we lived and ate and all the things. And my husband was so supportive of that. And it's like, I like, cooking is like a creative expression for me, and I love that. And I love being home with my kids too. And so I feel confident in both of those, and I wish there was more people just like applauding people for who they want to be.
That's such a great point, because the book that we were DMing about, Free Range Kids, I feel like she, even though it's a really interesting concept, she was very almost like anti-gentle parenting, and like almost like coming with like a tone of like annoyance and frustrated, probably because she's been like, had criticism about her own. But I was like, why can't you just tell us about yours? Like, why do you have to like push down a different one? I'm like, why can't there be elements about everything? But you do see it where sometimes it's like, in order to stand in your light and have your moment, it has to be like, well, that's the way, or that doesn't work.
Yeah. I see that in the church in general. And I know that's not even the direction of this, but I'm like, we don't have to, if your whole thing that you're doing is talking about what not to do. And to me, it's very off-putting. It's like, you be you and do what you're supposed to do, and trust that other people are doing what God's called them to do. And if not, they'll get there. But like, I'm going to worry about me, and I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to be confident and be joyful. So I don't know.
Yeah. What did you feel like was like the picture of like a pastor's wife that you're like, I don't know. Like, and then what have you kind of found a way that like is you know?
The first thing that goes to my mind is like someone who wears dresses a lot.
That's just so specific.
There's like one person from my hometown that like popped into my head. But no, like when Charles and I first met, I was a wedding photographer, and I had like workshops that we got to travel all over the place. We got to go to like France and Switzerland and Iceland for weddings and stuff like that. And I think in order to be a pastor's wife, I thought I had to like give up all of that and just be like, okay, now this is what we do. And this is and I stand and I shake your hand and I make you a meal when you're sick. I don't know. Like, I just like, or I need to know how to be a preacher now. Or like, I need to lead the women's ministry, or like these stereotypes that just might like come with it. And I don't know, I felt very blessed. We had a lot of people around us that just kept encouraging me that it's like, hey, and Charles, like, was just, hey, that's not what I at all expect of you. And that's not why I fell in love with you. So that's not, I don't want you to become someone else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like having a ton of kids, which is ironic now because I have 4 kids, which is a ton of kids.
I would put that in the category of ton.
Yeah. It feels like a ton sometimes. But just like thinking that I just had to like, okay, I have to give up all of my dreams, all of my creativity and passion, and now we do this. That's kind of like what the fear was for me. And thankfully has not been my story, but it was definitely the fear. Yeah.
I'm thankful that you're like able to be yourself, because I feel like that's like very attractive to someone, is just like it gives everyone else permission and freedom to be themselves.
Yep.
Like when someone is like very much so like being authentic to who they are.
Yeah.
When you think of like toxic femininity, like what comes to mind for you?
For me, image management comes into my mind of like, okay, the people pleasing, the passive aggression, the like idea that women are meant to be gentle in a way. And I think that you can have gentleness and not be passive. And as a person that is more straightforward, I've been told, maybe painfully and toxically straightforward sometimes.
I find your directness helpful.
Yeah, that's because you're a direct person as well. Which I think that's why our friendship has always been so great, is that I don't feel like I have to protect an image around you. I can just tell you, and we can tell each other, hey, this hurt me. This is the way that I'm feeling, or this is what I'm going through. I don't have to dance around it. And I don't I don't think you expect me to like maintain this perfect image, but I've had a lot of difficulty in women friendships because of the image management of like, we're not going to be straightforward with each other to maintain this like happy persona, as opposed to like, let's just actually get let's clean the wound and make it heal right, instead of like letting it heal and it get infected. And then a year down the road, we're in such a bad place because of it. And so I think that like people pleasing, or which I think leads to passive aggression in a lot of ways, because you just want everyone to feel a certain type of way about you. And so I find that like can be really toxic in relationships, when you're just not like, out of love, being honest and just being like, hey, this is not, I know this might make the relationship uncomfortable or this moment uncomfortable, but I need to be honest about where I'm at, or talk to you about what's going on internally.
I think you're right too, because when it goes unaddressed, like even like a paper cut can like get infected, and then all of a sudden like amputated, like worst case scenario, like something small. It's not like you have to address every paper cut, but if something's still tender to the touch, I think about that a lot. Of like, for me, if something bothers me, I'm not going to do anything for 24 hours. Like I'm going to sleep on it and see if there's something better. But if it still bothers me after 48 hours, I'm like, I need to give that person a call, or like I need to talk with them, because it's not fair to them. And clearly it's something enough that's bothered me. I wonder even, so like toxic to me, whether it's masculinity or femininity, it's when something's out of balance. Like it's when something is overextended, like a piece of it that's maybe something that's a good aspect about it. So I even think of like, the most obvious one to me is like gossip, because I feel like that's one that's just corrosive. But I think the connecting point of that is it's like women are relational. Like women are very caring. Women are empathetic and notice and like are wanting harmony, or, you know, I feel like that's the piece. And then gossip is like something that feels, I remember someone said it's like a glue, and they were actually for gossip. They're like, it's a glue. They were not someone I would like to be like.
That's crazy.
But I like to hear different opinions. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm out here and not telling you anything about my life ever.
Red flag.
Yeah. But it was basically saying that it's like a glue and it's like bonding, but I'm like, oh, it's not. And so when I was thinking, even preparing, I was like, okay, when is a time that like I gossiped? Like when is something? And I remember one time, and it was the worst. It was a mutual person that we know. Okay. And it was someone you used to date.
It was about you.
No, it was about you.
And I'm here to tell you.
I'm here to tell you.
I repent.
No, it was someone. And he said something dumb. And I screenshot it. And I was sending it to a friend to make fun of it, because it was dumb. Screenshot. And you know what I did?
You sent it to him?
Yep.
Yeah.
I sent it right back to him, because his head was in my mind, because I was about to make fun of him. And I sent it to him. And this was when I was a teenager. And I think he wrote back something like, oh, like, were you making fun of me? And I realized, like, I never want to feel that again. I never want to make someone feel that again. Like, that to me was like, was it worth the laugh? Was it worth something stupid at his expense? Like, which, no, it wasn't. Like, it was like a cruel thing. But seeing the hurt to my face, like, it makes me second guess anytime where I'm like, oh my gosh, if they were to see this text that I'm saying, would it hurt them? Or if they hear these words and they're not here, would it hurt them? And obviously we're not perfect, you know. There comes times where it's like, you know, I need to second guess. But that to me is like in a moment of like, that sucks so bad. Yeah. But it makes me think of the scene in Mean Girls where they're like calling each other and talking about it. And then she's on the phone. She's like, oh, see? And then I just was like, oh my gosh, like, why is that a universal thing? I was like, it wasn't just I've experienced it. Have you ever been on the receiving end of something like that? Or unfortunately, like me, have you ever been on the end where you're like, that didn't, you know, in the moment it was fun and didn't feel good?
Yes.
You want to go first? You want me to?
Okay, next question. I'm just kidding.
Yes to both things.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been in the same boat, the texting thing. So brutal. I actually did that one time when I was sitting next to the person.
Oh, that's the word.
Yeah. But it wasn't making fun. It was like, hey, something's like not okay right now. And I'm like so mad. Then I texted it to him. And the second I did it, I heard his phone buzz and I go, oh no. Oh no. But it's a funny way to hold you accountable, right? To like make you realize the humanity of those moments. And I think probably most of us have been on the receiving end of gossip or people talking about you. I do agree that it is a glue. It's just the wrong type of glue. And you're bonding over these toxic things and there's no actual like human bond. So when any storm hits a relationship and your only bond is gossip, that friendship is taken with the storm, you know? And so I've experienced that. I've had relationships with people where maybe we're bonding over frustration of a boss or of a leader. And that's our whole relationship is like, can you believe that they did this? And it doesn't feel like gossip in the moment because you're commiserating and it feels like justice. But then like I've been in a situation where then I become the boss and then everyone's talking about me. And that relationship I thought that I had built was just built on gossip. And so they just took their gossip and found somebody else to do it about me. So it's just like, it opens a door for people to like relate to you and then to just cut bait and start doing the same thing to you. And most of the time, if you're doing it with someone, they're doing it about you somewhere else. And so it's just, I've been on both ends of it. And I think it's like it's a hard reality to face. Like when you talk about someone that it most of the time does get back to them. And it's, I think, a good conviction to have when you're like, oh shoot, like I don't do that anymore. Anyone that talks about anybody, I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be caught here in this moment. I'm not going to agree with you. I'm out of here. I don't want to have my name next to this because I know what it feels like.
How do you do a delicate exit, or is it not delicate? Like, how do you, like, when someone's coming up to do that?
I mean, I think sometimes it's had to be really clear. Like, hey, if you have anything bad to say about this person, like, I don't agree with it and I don't want to continue this conversation. Sometimes it really is just like, okay, and moving on. I think it just depends on the situation and what's being said. If it's lies or it is like blatant gossip, then I'll stop it. But gossip can take a lot of forms and it can be nuanced and it can feel like venting. It can feel like trying to receive wisdom, and you have to try to find the discernment within your own heart to identify what the true root of it is. If someone's truly asking for wisdom and clarity and help, they're usually not attacking character. They're trying to get to the root of what the issue is between two people and coming with humility and questions, as opposed to like, let me tell you about this person and what they did.
Yeah.
So it's just, discerning that.
And it's such a great point too, because I even think like in your case, then you got elevated to the boss, but then I feel like also one way it ends is one of you gets healthy. And then you're like, we don't have any, like if I'm trying to pursue health, like I've had that where like you go through something really difficult with someone and you feel like we went through something painful, and it was real. And like, and even if you're talking about it in a way that's just acknowledging it, when one of you then wants to heal from that, and the other one's not ready, you're just like, we don't have anything in common. Like, I can only meet you in the ER. Like, and I want to leave the building. Like, I want to go and heal. And I feel like that's also tough too, is that's one way that ends it, is where you're just like, oh, like there's nothing for us to connect on even outside of this. But what comes to mind for you?
I grew up in a very small private Christian school. When I graduated, there were 80 people, 20 girls, 60 boys. And I was with like until like second grade, I think there's only 5 girls. Like, it was just a crazy. So even my relationship with like girlfriends was, I just always had more guy friends because there's just more boys around me.
There were 60 of them.
Yes, and like 5 girls. And so I did not have like the best experiences growing up. I always felt like I didn't have like my person or my people, or like sad. I'm like, why do I not have a best friend? Or when I did have best friends, it was always very hurtful relationships of like, I just believed everything that like these middle school girls said about me. You know what I mean? Which, but this one specific scenario comes to mind. I was in high school and I had this boyfriend, and his family lived in San Diego, and me, his sister, and his mom were going for like 3 weeks in the summer, and we were going to drive up with his family to the redwoods and like do all this fun stuff. And I was super excited. And I remember the girls in my grade found out that I was going, and they had a prayer meeting for me in my purity. And and when I tell you, like, it's a funny thing too, because I just always remember people, like, because I had a boyfriend, it's like, oh, she's having sex, there she goes, or whatever. It's like, you know nothing.
There she goes.
I'm like, you literally know nothing about me. I'm like, when I was married, proudly a virgin, like, you literally know nothing about me. Just because I'm going on this trip, you're having this prayer meeting of you being so kind and holy, where it's like, that is, do you see that that's just gossip? That is literally just gossip. And so I had a lot of scenarios like that were super hurtful, that honestly led me, like, my whole elementary, middle school, high school life was a lot of that. And I didn't, until I was like 14, I didn't have like a real moment where I saw kind Christians. I went to this camp, and like I accidentally signed up for a leadership program. I had no idea. I thought I was just going to zip line or something. And I get there and I'm like,
they're like, you're doing both.
Literally, it's like, here's an intensive on how to hear the Holy Spirit. It was such a God thing. Now that I look back, I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I literally just spent days like doing like how to hear the Spirit workshops of like these counselors from Bethel, and they came out. It was so cool, and it changed my life. But before that, I had just never seen kind Christians. And it's like, it's always gossip in the form of a prayer meeting. Like, even with my grandparents or generations before us, like that age group, it was just, that's what I saw. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good. And I think now too, there was a scenario where I remember telling Charles, I was like, I'm realizing when him and I got together, he was just very like, he was on like, we don't gossip. I don't know. It was just such a funny thing as a 22-year-old guy. He was so like pro, like, we do not talk bad about people. And I remember there's this group of people that I was around a lot. And he brought up one time, he's like, hey, they're always talking about people. And I remember being like, no. And then I started like pay attention when I was in the conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's like all the conversation is. And so just the other day, I actually told Charles, this is 10 years later, and we still know these people and are close to them. And I remember telling him, I'm like, babe, I just realized like the culture has changed. Like, they don't talk about people anymore. And I remember constantly or consciously trying to make that decision and saying things a few times of like, hey, let's talk about something else, or like whatever. And I remember being like, it's different now. And he's like, or maybe you set a standard and they don't talk around you anymore. And I was like, oh, I just am like, oh yeah, no one gossips anymore. This is great.
Isn't that the best though, that you created that? Like, when people don't talk to you about other people anymore.
It's a cool thing to see, because I realize now, even my friendships that I have, now you realize it's like, that is such an immature place to go. It's like, if that's what your friendship is around, that's not a friendship.
Yeah.
If that's what it's like, what are you how do you have time to do that? Like, we're doing things, we got places to go, people to meet, we got things to do. It's like, you're gonna waste your time talking about, I think I feel so passionate about it as well, because our church used to not have an influence like on a global scale, and then now it does very largely. And I've realized it's like there's gonna be people who love us, gonna be people who hate us, and I've seen YouTube video after YouTube video about some of my best friends, stuff that I just know is simply not the truth, and even about my husband too. Apparently, I won't. No, I'm okay. Just
tell us off camera that one.
Get a little too heated. So I think even seeing that on such like a large scale has just made me. It's like, whenever we got into ministry, I feel like God put on my heart, like so kindly, like that verse of like being as wise as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. And I just had this picture of like, I want things to be able to like you know how a duck, it's like they're waterproof and the water just rolls off. It's like, that has been my prayer of like, God, keep my heart soft, but I want my skin to be thick. I need like, people are going to say stuff, people are going to have opinions. If you're making a difference, people are going to have opinions about what you're doing. There's going to be people that don't like it. And if people don't like what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything too big. So I've just had to accept and even realize it's like, okay, yeah, people are going to have opinions and they can have whatever opinion they want. At the end of the day, in the early church, they were getting stoned to death and murdered. So people are going to make YouTube videos, let them do it. Like, it's not that bad. But it really has just been like a whole shift of like, I don't want any part of that. I can't, I know what that feels like. I know what it is to see something and start crying. And like, I never want to be a part of that. And it's cool, I feel like, to, get to create a family where I feel confident that my kids aren't even, that's gonna be like, what? We don't have time for that. But
I think it's so cool because I hear like the strength in your voice talking about it. Like, I can hear like it would be uncomfortable to bring it to you in a good way. Like, it would be uncomfortable to be around and say something and then like, we don't talk about that, or that's not who we are. Like, that does make someone, and it probably makes them feel a little like either torn or convicted, and they may like project it as like, oh, that's, frustrating, or I was just trying to pray for your purity, my girl.
Warrior now.
That's like the best. I think that's so cool because it does refine your friendships when you become somebody that's like, hey, this is what I don't do, and these are the boundaries that I have for my soul, my family. We don't talk about people here. The friendships will fade, the ones that aren't built to last. And I think that's the best thing in the world, like that you could only invite, like being in your presence will refine everybody around you that chooses to stay in it. And so I think that that's a huge testament to you. I think you're the same way. And both of you have like experienced too on a platform that people will say whatever they want. They'll have a million opinions about you. And you guys are just awesome. Sorry, I just want to say that.
This little gal pal thing over here.
I'm just over here gassing you up.
No, it's true though. Like, most of the time I feel not out of the loop, but things will always surprise me. And I'm like, I'm not the one that people are like, can you believe? Did you hear? Like, I'm hearing about things like after the fact, like much less in it. But I prefer that. I'm like, unless I'm involved here, don't triangulate me in. Like, and what I'm going to do is, my advice is you're going to go to the person. Like, that's all I'm going to say. Or someone said they encountered something and I said, you need to let it die at your feet. I was like, you should not talk to me about it. I was like, the conversation needs to end there. I was like, it doesn't even need to go around. I was like, you asked my advice. My advice is to don't tell anyone else, like, but mine though, one time it came out where I was saying something about when we were early on dating, Aaron's ex-girlfriends to him. And it was coming out of insecurity. Because his type before was like super artistic and super like talented and cool and like very like Bjork. Like, I want to tell you, like, I'm just, and that's not me. And I think I was saying something out of insecurity. I remember Aaron stopped me. He goes, hey, like, I have a lot of respect for her and I'm not dating her, but I'm not going to allow you to talk about her that way. He goes, because if we ever break up, I would never allow someone to speak about you that way to me. And I just remember being like, okay.
Like, so much integrity, but man.
Like, it's so right. I feel so embarrassed. Like, but it helped me where I was like, it comes out of insecurity. Like, I feel like that's also the point of like, it comes out of an insecurity thing. And I think another thing to like even segue of, well, what else is something that can turn toxic out of insecurity? And I feel like something beautiful about women is like beauty. And like there's something like gorgeous about women and glowy and something even just soft, and it's just different. And then I think toxic is when you're like playing it up for power, or like I know women who it's like, oh, it's almost saying it's empowerment, but I'm like, that bra's not comfortable. like, that's not powerful. Like wearing a Snuggie, powerful.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
I've always been a Snuggie girl.
Always. When I worked in anthropology, we had a joke. We were like, okay, if you dress like Urban Outfitters, because they was like all owned by the same parent company. If you dress for Urban Outfitters, you're dressing for boys. If you dress for anthropology, you're dressing for girls. If you're dressing for free people, you're dressing for yourself.
That is hilarious. It feels pretty on point.
Doesn't it though? Because I was like, oh, anthro girly, but never.
We did love free people though.
You know,
man.
it had a moment.
Yeah,
We had our flair.
remember that one dress that you had, and then
Tess got engaged in that dress.
stop.
Do you
were
remember?
obsessed. We had this like one dress, and we got like every color,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like totally see through, and you had to wear jeans under. It was very.
It was like
and
all the
yeah,
colors
yes,
and the lace.
yes.
Yeah, the lace.
Guys,
Did
we
it have
had
a
every
chokehold
color.
on you
It had
too?
every color. I think I had lavender in it.
Oh, we didn't see
was-
that one. I
And a
think I
white
had
and a lavender.
white with it. We also had,
Yeah.
remember those anthro boots?
Yes.
Oh, they were, I mean, we could go on and on about that.
I need those pictures to be burned.
Exactly. I know, right? I mean, floppy hats and everything with it.
Oh,
Ugh, too many accessories.
oh,
floppy hats and the headbands.
so many
Headbands.
like flip outs. Like
I'm going to say something controversial. If headbands came back, I'm back. Like, if they
could do
ever
it.
came back,
oh, in Oklahoma,
Ashley,
they're back.
Oh, they are.
did they ever leave?
Listen, I went to my daughter's recital. I walked in and every single mom was in a headband and a dress, and I was like, I missed the memo. I was like in a baseball hat and cargos,
Oh my-
and I was like, I feel
What kind of headband though? Like a one all the way around, or one just behind the ears?
Hard hitting
you know,
questions.
I feel like I'm not the right person to answer this because you say what kind of headband. I'm like, there's only
You
one
didn't
kind.
look. You didn't go like.
There's only one kind.
Up the hair.
Oh, this is the kind. Okay, maybe this is different because this has the knot. You know, now it has the knot.
Not.
Wow.
It's just like you just
I know exactly what
No,
you're talking
I
about. I have the visual.
I didn't see that
very
one coming.
like a sorority girl.
Okay, we
Uh-huh.
love. Go
Wow.
Tulsa.
Go Tulsa.
Okay,
What point was I making? I got it.
sorry.
No, that's a good point. I also remember though realizing, because I feel like when we were coming up, everyone was like, dress for your body type. Like, I feel like we all knew what our body type was. Like, are you a pear, hourglass, apple, triangle, upside down triangle?
Oh my
I
god.
feel like every magazine, you're just like, what's my body type and how do I dress for it?
It's very important at that time.
It was. I mean, the Empire waist. But I do think I realized that, like, because I was looking back and I remember one time just thinking to myself, if I wore only what I wanted to wear and no one cared, what would it be? And I was like, I think it would just be the baggiest bamboo cloth thing. Like, just something hideous but comfortable. I was like, I'd probably do that. But then I was like, why don't I do that? And I was like, well, I think sometimes I was like, it's even attention. Like, I think even like dressing provocatively, I felt like, okay, I felt powerful. Like, it felt like I can command attention, or I command it. But then I don't know, it's a fleeting kind of attention. It's a fleeting kind of power. And it's something that you're like, it's also giving power to someone else to determine if you're beautiful or not, you know? And so I feel like sometimes even one aspect of toxic femininity is like dressing or behaving or saying things in a way that's like, I'm going to elicit attraction. I'm going to elicit response, or I'm going to have this. I actually know someone super dear to me, and they had a sexual assault issue. Then they pendulum swung, and they're like, I'm never going to feel powerless again. And she was a commanding, like, super sexy presence. But I'm like, oh, like, I know that's coming out of, you know, like a helplessness feeling. And so I guess, like, how have you guys felt the balance between, like, enjoying beauty and wanting to feel beautiful? And obviously, like, especially being married, you're like, I also want to feel sexy. Like, it's not that it's I want to compartmentalize and be like, these are all wrong. But how do you do it in a way that doesn't feel like out of balance?
Yeah. I feel like one thing that I've learned, and this kind of applies to a lot of different scenarios, but even with this, sometimes when you like assume someone's motive, it's way more about you than it is about them. So like, for instance, growing up in like a very conservative Christian home and environment, I remember thinking like, oh, like girls in string bikinis are just like trying to make out with somebody at 14. Like they're just trying, where it's like, I have no idea their culture. I have no idea what's normal in their house. Could just be a very normal swimsuit to them. But for me, it's like, I felt like, oh, if you show cleavage, or if you don't have like board shorts on, like in a tankini, like,
And I'm like looking at two people who had board shorts and
Oh my
tankinis
gosh,
over
yeah.
here.
I would have worn
I got like matching sets from Pottery Barn. My mom matched my bedspread. So not cool. I just realized sometimes too, I think that there can be maybe like insecurity and like a self-consciousness of someone else's beauty. That like if you see a woman who is like so beautiful or like has something on that you would never wear, it's like, oh, she must be like, you know, her heart. It's like even in different countries, different places, different parts of the world, like what is acceptable. In some places your head has to be covered. In other places it's very normal to be at a restaurant with a swimsuit on and some shorts, like, and you're good.
Yes.
And I think it's super important to not like project your own things on someone else, and know that like you can be beautiful and that does nothing to my beauty. We can all be beautiful. And I don't have to. I think it comes with a lot of like your internal world. I think it's so much more about your internal world and your thoughts about yourself than it really is about like, should she be having this low cut V-neck on? It's like, okay, if this is making me feel uncomfortable, am I insecure? Am I feeling like her beauty makes me less beautiful? Am I scared that my husband sees her more than he sees me? And I remember my mom was like obsessed with Audrey Hepburn. We would always watch Audrey Hepburn movies. And I don't know if she says this in a movie or if this was like a Pinterest quote I saw, or if she never saw this, but I just like associate it with her. But for some reason with Audrey Hepburn, there's like a quote in my mind. I think she said it. It's like, the most beautiful girls are the ones with a smile. And I remember feeling that because I remember there were times in high school and middle school where I just did not feel beautiful, or I would see other girls and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so pretty and I don't look like that. Like my skin will never be that tan. I'll always get burned. Like it's and, I just remember kind of like trying to adopt that. And even now it's like, we get to come. I remember last year coming here, I felt like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool girls like around, like, this is kind of intimidating. But then just feeling like, you know what, I want to be known for my kindness. I want to be known like for my smile. I might not like be the most beautiful person in the room, but like I can smile and I can be kind. And like, that's what I can be known for. And I think like, if you find yourself thinking about that a lot of like, how people are dressing or whatever, if that offends you, I think it's way more about like, I think there's just some questions you can do and some work you could do internally to where you could walk up to anybody and not be maybe offended or put off by what they choose to wear and how they feel beautiful.
I just love it. Like, I'm just sitting, I don't have a follow-up thing because I'm just receiving it. Like, I just think it's so true. Like, I think it is like this quiet confidence of a woman who knows herself. Like, that is the most attractive thing in the world.
It really is. And you can see it on people.
Yes.
You really can. Yeah.
How do we, like, how can you see it? What is that about them?
Because there are some people where I like can make mental notes where I'm like, oh, it's not like you're like the most beautiful. It's not like you look like a supermodel, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're just beautiful. And it really is like, whoa, like I can tell like your soul is beautiful. You can just like tell. Yeah.
I love that.
Haven, what's the best part about a fight?
Winning.
Winning?
No, I'm kidding. You don't really win in marital fights.
You can win. I think when you come together in the right way, maybe what you thought was winning isn't winning at all.
I think I know your answer to what your favorite thing about a fight is.
Make up sex afterward?
Okay, maybe I didn't. Anyways, we have created a course called How to Fight Better. It's under our umbrella of Pillow Talk, which is about just conversations that you can have with your spouse. We brought in our actual marriage counselor of 12 years, Dr. Jonathan Cood, to help us and explain the tools that he's been teaching us that have helped us have what we feel like is a really thriving, enjoyable marriage, and one that we're proud of. And so we were like, how can we share these experiences, but also the professional person who taught us how to do this with the world? So you can go to joinpillowtalk.com right now to get How to Fight Better. Okay, back to the episode. And I think also I want to even kind of go back to the reason I initially wanted both of you is I feel like you're both really beautiful but different depictions of femininity. Like it's a different type of expression, but also I would attribute both of you guys as healthy. And I kind of want to hear, especially when you were preparing your Proverbs 31, like talk about it. To me, I loved hearing that because you were also like, anyone can like learn from this. You were like, we don't look at David and be like, boys only, you know?
Yeah.
Like anyone can learn because it's characteristics and traits. And so I kind of want to hear a little bit more about like when you were speaking about it, like what landed the most for you?
I think something that first was interesting to me is that like at the beginning of the chapter, it says that like this is the king's mother. So she was the queen at one point, telling him what to look for in a wife. And so, because a lot of questions, because I put like on my Instagram that I was going to do a talk about it, and a lot of the questions were like, isn't this ridiculous that a man is telling a woman how to be a good woman? Like, why is this? And that was, but just to even go back to like, oh, this is advice from a queen mother to a son of like, hey, this is what this role takes. And like, this is what you need to look for. I think that's even a really important context because it's like, this is not every single woman go make your bedspread. Like this is, she knew what tasks were involved in running that kingdom. Like she's running a freaking kingdom. And I think it's so funny how so many times the Proverbs 31 woman is like, I almost see it's like you have like being a feminist or being a Proverbs 31 woman and they're like at war. But I think it's very interesting if we were actually to look at who this woman was, what she did. She was a very strong woman. She did not need anybody. It says that she had her own job. She was waking up early in the morning and working to make wages for her home. She was going out. She was buying property, assessing the land, seeing what she, I'm like, she's a real estate genius. I'm like, real estate mogul.
You see her picture on park benches.
Yes, but
Call the
so
queen.
often it's like, be a Proverbs 31 woman, stay home and cook.
Yeah.
It's like, that's actually not what it is. You got to read it. You got to like see the context. And so one thing that stood out to me the most was she was so unbothered, like because she had stuff to do. She woke up, there's a portion in it, and I wish I had my Bible with me, but there's a portion in it where it says she did not waste away her days in idleness. And my mom, actually, I was using the restroom at her house. That was a TMI maybe, but I was in her restroom. She has all of these like really awesome like encouragements like all over in her bathroom. And one said like, rest, what you do when your work is all done and like you need to like rest and calm down. Idleness, like avoiding what you need to do. And that like stood out to me so much. It's like, I feel like so much of us can spend our times just idly wasted. Like even with social media, like Instagram, you know, like I will feel myself, I'm more of an avoider. If there's like big emotions, a red flag for me is like, I've realized that I'm just scrolling. I don't even know what I'm looking at. And I can feel like this like kind of anxiety raise up in me. And I'm like, okay, I'm avoiding something. I need to think about whatever heavy emotion it is. And the thing that I just loved the most that it said about her is like, she knew what she was here to do. She was busy doing it, and she was not wasting away her days being idle. She knew the jobs that were out in front of her. She knew the way that the kingdom needed to be ran, and she was doing her part in that. And it's even made me kind of like look at my days and like, okay, what am I? Sometimes I am home with our 4 kids right now. And sometimes it does. It feels like I've done so much all day long and nothing at all at the same time. But sometimes it just helps to like remind yourself. It's like, no, like I am sustaining 4 lives right now. I am like, and then also having those things that are like, I'm also working on a collection because I want to sell some art this year. It's like I love to paint and I just want to put it out there, and it feels scary, but I want to do it. And like just things like that, to where it's like I don't want to waste away my days idly. And that's probably the thing that I took from her the most, is that she was unbothered. She didn't have time to, who knows if there were people talking bad about her or saying things, or maybe she should have been doing something else. But it's like she was busy. She had other stuff to do. She didn't have time to like participate. And I love that.
That's so good. What makes you think of it?
I think the thing I'm just hearing from what you're saying is like purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
And she was probably a beautiful woman because of how secure she was in her purpose. Because I find like the most beautiful women, like you're saying, are the most secure in who they are internally. And the external is just a reflection of the internal. And that just like inspires me so much to just be purposeful. It could mean the season is being home with your family, or me being home with my daughter. It can mean that I'm running 1,000 miles an hour towards every dream I ever had, and everything is opening up, you know, or whatever it might look, the days might look like. You can still be purposeful in all of it, you know, and that's what we're called to do, or meant to do. It's like whatever we have in our hands in that moment, it's probably going to be a lot of different portions. We can be purposeful with it, and we don't have to be idle with it and waste it away. There's still so much purpose we can bring to everything.
I love that. And you also said one thing that struck in my head, where you're like, sometimes it feels like feminism and just like femininity or whatever are at odds. And I was like, you know, it's interesting. Why is that? Because one of the most controversial parts about all of it is like, okay, submission, you know, and it's kind of also this aspect of, again, I do think a healthy femininity is relaxed. It's receiving. It's, you know, having the game come to you, you know, like that's like, it's being pursued, and there is something to that. But then it's also like, well, I don't want a man to like tell me what to do, or to be over me, or I don't want to submit or have my own opinions. But even a lot of my friends, because I was kind of workshopping this concept outside of faith, like most of them would be like, no, I'd love a man who like is big and makes decisions, you know, like I don't think even like it has to be this like, oh, super like religious concept of like pushing you down in submission. I feel like there is some type of femininity of like, no, I just want to be as big as I am, and I just want you to be bigger. Like, or, and it doesn't have to be like bigger, louder, bigger, because I feel like you have a very strong personality, and Jake is a very like lets you fly, and he's like a grounded person, but it's never in a way that makes it, hey, you be little so I can be big. So how does that dynamic work for you guys?
Well, you know, I have a lot to learn in terms of submission, but I feel exactly what you're saying. Like, he's the anchor. And a lot of times I'm up in space or whiling out or doing whatever. And he's not like keeping me on any sort of rope. You know, he's just like a home base. And I love when you guys were talking about both of your husbands being the space where they are going to call you to more. Like, we don't talk about people. That's my husband. And I feel like that's the best. That's submission at its best. When someone brings to the table a better option, a better life, a better way of thinking, a healthier way of thinking, something that's going to elevate you, and you submit to the better thing. And I feel like that's I think that's what God intended for submission, is that someone would bring to the table a wiser way of life, and that you together would submit to this wiser way of life. And so I think that's for me what Jake is. He's way wiser than I am. He's way steadier than I am. And he's offered me a better way of life. All of my anxiety, all of the things that I let my mind wander to, I can go to him, and he offers me, there's a piece here. Let me help you find it. You know, it's not like, don't go do that job. Don't go like be acting like that. Like, don't like, I need you to stay home and like do this for me. No, it's I find it so much bigger than that. Like, submission is just, there's so much I could learn from another person. And I chose well in that way, because I chose someone whose ways I trust, whose choices I trust, whose honor I trust. And so the submission conversation between him and I is much bigger than the daily minuscule, choices in life. It's like, no, this is a posture of our character, of our faith, of our integrity. And so I don't even think about the smaller things, which, I could be better in. He doesn't really tell me what to do ever. So I don't really have an opportunity to submit, but because he's like, no, you just do your thing, girl. I'll be here. But I find like, for me, that's like the way that I've been able to submit. I feel like God has called me to submit, is like, I just truly trust his honor and his integrity. So when he has something to say about the way that I'm living, or my heart or my character or my faith or my questions or my doubts, like, I do want to ask him and hear his wisdom and take a little bit of the peace and the integrity and the honor that he has and apply it to my life.
Yeah, the story that comes to mind even is when you guys were trying to figure out the house situation. And you're like, I can't figure it out. I don't know how it's going to work. And like, it was like, this is this big question, like how we're going to make it happen. And his response wasn't a strategy. It wasn't how we can do it. It wasn't this is a path. It says, well, I guess we're in miracle territory.
Yeah.
And that to me is also like, that's a better choice.
Yes.
Do you know? Like, it's not even like well, I'm going to guide us and figure us out. It's like, okay, let's call into something bigger, you know, and let's both be available.
Instead of closing his fist, he opens it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Jake.
Go Jake.
Go Jake.
Shout out to Jake.
Shout out to Jake. Yeah, when you were also talking about how you're like, up in the air and let's it figure out, I was like, I think that's why, because we had a little trio before Jake came. It was me and you and my husband Aaron, because we've been friends for a long time and Aaron's been around for a long time. And Mariah and Aaron would always very much get along, where I'm like, am I the third wheel? Because I was like, man, Aaron's up in the air a lot. He's got a lot of ideas, and I'm just like, I'm down here when we're ready to choose.
We're ready to choose. Yeah, it's so real.
But thank you guys for coming. This was so fun. Thanks for staying after a really long day, first of all, but also just for being willing to do this. Like, it's just, I was telling some of the guys who helped me film, I was like, I only have friends on this podcast. Like, I kind of only like to have people that I already know and I want to learn from, and we can explore different topics, but something about them is something I'd like to learn from in it. And that's where I want to be curious. And so I have just so much to learn from you guys. And it's just been really fun to kind of hear your take on this.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Cheers. I call to action.
Psalm 31.
Psalm 31 and Proverbs 31.
Psalm 31.
And Proverbs 4, which is what I said on there. Yeah, the Bible rocks.
Can that be
the Bible rocks? Just pictures like this.
And the name of the
Okay, perfect.
and the name of the episode.
Okay. Let me just do a quick closer. Follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube at Haven the Podcast. That's also my social for Instagram, TikTok, and I think that's pretty much it. At Haven the Podcast. It'll be on the bottom there. You can sign up for my newsletter, havenpod.com. And then I also have the relational e-course that Aaron and I created together with our actual marriage therapist, Pillow Talk, How to Fight Better. I actually met a couple this past weekend that had gone through the course, and they were telling me about it, and it was really, really fun to kind of like see the fruition of like conflict isn't something that has to be avoided. It's something that can make us better and draw us closer to one another. So that website, joinpillowtalk.com, How to Fight Better. Otherwise, I will see you on the next episode.